Welcome to the Fourth Branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Saturday, August 10th, 2019. I am MD. The program we have for you today is a sequel of what has been talked about in the media for the past few days. Mass shooting in America. But as you probably already aware, if you've been watching this program, we do not discuss any topic, any issue just for the sake of discussing or just to give you the news. It's something that you can get from everywhere, the detail of which we could not possibly present to you. But every topic that's of importance to our society, that impacts our society, we discuss it here in a way that would provide you, our audience, the information, the accurate information you need in order to make decision based on information, not on political affiliation, not on your beliefs, but information that are necessary in order to make good decision. As such, today we will take an interesting approach of discussing mass shooting in America. We will talk about, as you probably already received the invite, or will soon, the what of mass shooting. In 60 seconds, we will discuss this topic exclusively today through the prism of common sense. If you joined us before, thank you. Your participation makes the journey a little bit lighter, a tad more bearable. If you join us for the first time, welcome. The Fourth Branch program is not associated with any political party, and we at the Fourth Branch do not have any political aspiration or agenda. Our ultimate objective is to perfect the union. And in order to do so, we ought to remove the biggest obstacle of all: ignorance. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Thus, the importance of eradicating ignorance from our society. It is within this background that today we will discuss tragedies that have occurred across America. It has been happening for quite some time now. It is not something that's dated just the current administration or the previous one or the one before that. In fact, we have in record shooting that have been happening in the United States since probably the 1800s. But as we will take a look at what has been happening for the past few years, and we will focus on the what of mass shooting. And the objective, of course, the goal, is to try to explore solution to a plague which seems to be destroying generations of people, all the while watching powerless those we elected in office doing absolutely nothing. When we return. Live from New York City at the top of the hour, every weekday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Fourth Branch presents discussions, debates, commentaries on social, political issues, current events, sports, entertainment, religion, education, science, and every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation on controversial issues such as abortion, homosexuality, war on blacks. Are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Information which might irritate you, make you cry, make you laugh, but above all, will make you smarter. Join us every time. It is the right thing to do. It is the only way to keep your sanity in a world of chaos, hypocrisy, immorality, and deception. Welcome to Common Sense. In light of what happened just a week ago, two mass shootings, hours from one another, occurred last weekend. One in El Paso, Texas, claiming the lives of 22 people and wounding 24. The other in Dayton, Ohio, claiming the lives of 9 people, including the gunman, and wounded 19 others. That was just the latest in a streak of mass shooting in America. Today, we will begin this conversation by outlining some of the mass shootings that have occurred for the past couple of years in order to put in perspective the conversation we will have shortly thereafter. It is worth noted that the 10 most deadly massacre in the United States happened in the last 5 years alone. As I mentioned earlier, mass shooting is nothing new in America. Now there are two aspects. We begin this conversation by looking at mass shooting in general. There is also the other aspect of shooting, could be mass or shooting in general, that happen in the schoolyard. But for sake of brevity here, we will only address mass shooting. If time allows, maybe in some point in the future, we will continue this conversation and delve in detail about other aspects of mass shooting in America. Now, I ought to mention right off the bat that the information that I will be providing in this conversation can be easily verified. We get our data from the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms government website, ATF. In other words, the figures, the numbers, the detail that we will be providing to you, you will be able to verify that if you so wish. And I say that because, as I mentioned yesterday, a number of individuals who, because the program doesn't satisfy their craving, their ego, and doesn't really address what pleases them, start comparing this program with other programs such as End for War, which is a joke by an individual who only deal in conspiracy theories. In fact, End for War is just the spoken words of tabloid like Inquirer. Here, we do not create information. We do not whip information. We use information that are available, and we analyze those information through the prism of common sense. It is with this background that what we're going to talk about today about the what of mass shooting, all the information can be easily verified. But we want to tell you what of the mass shooting in just a moment. In no particular order, we will begin talking about mass shootings that have occurred in the United States in the past few years. In 2017, Las Vegas, gunmen opened fire during a concert. 58 people were killed. More than 500 were injured. And there were another 400 people, more than 500 were wounded, another 400 plus people were injured. Now, wherever you see in your screen, the slide that you're currently watching, that you see injured, what we mean by that are people who are trying to flee the scene and got injured in the process, but not by the shooting itself. So yes, sometimes you see there is no injured because there were nobody who got injured trying to flee the scene. That's all it meant. So if you were to add the number of injured to the number of wounded, then you get a higher number for that particular mass shooting. Orlando, Florida, 2016. A heavily armed gunman at a nightclub called Paul's, opened fire. 49 people were killed. I believe more than 50 people were injured. In 2007, Virginia Tech in Blacksburg, Virginia. A lone 23-year-old student opened fire and killed 27 students before committing suicide. In 2017, Sutherland Springs in Texas, gunmen opened fire, killing 26 people, and 20 others were injured. In 2012, Newton, Connecticut, Sandy Hook Elementary School, a mentally ill individual opened fire, killing 26 people, 20 of whom were children. In 1991, at a Texas restaurant, a 35-year-old individual opened fire and killed 23 people. Actually, he shot 23 people, 22 were pronounced dead instantaneously, and one died at the hospital. 2019, El Paso, Texas, at Walmart, gunmen traveled 10 hours, opened fire, killed 22 people, and injured 24 others. In Dayton, Ohio, that same day, gunmen opened fire at a Ned Pepper's bar, killed 9 people and injured 20 others. 1984, Edson Isidro McDonald, a 41-year-old individual, opened fire and killed 21 people and injured 19 others. 2018, at Stoneham Douglas High School, an individual opened fire and killed 17 people and injured a score of others. 2015, San Bernardino, an individual opened fire, killing 14 people and injuring 22 others. 2009, at the Fort Hood military base, an individual opened fire and killed 13 people and injured 42 others. In 2009, city of Binghamton, an individual opened fire, killing 13 people before turning the gun on himself. In 1999, in Colorado, at Columbine High School. 2 individual students in that school stormed the cafeteria, opened fire, killed 12 people, and injured a few others. 2013, at the Navy Yard headquarters, a former serviceman opened fire, killed 12 people before being killed by police. 2012, Aurora, Colorado, at a movie theater, a gunman opened fire and killed 12 people. 70 others were injured. 2018, at a bar in California, an individual opened fire, killing 12 people and injured many others. 2018, at a synagogue in Pennsylvania, a gunman burst into the synagogue, opened fire, killing 11 people. Santa Fe, California, 2018, a 17-year-old student opened fire and killed 10 people. Those were the deadliest massacres in America, all because of only one thing. All those individuals, all those mass shootings that I just read to you, there is one common denominator. They all had automatic weapons. For 20 minutes, well, 15 minutes, we spend reading to you not names of people killed. We would not have enough time to do so, but rather the massacres that occurred in America for the past 2 decades. The common denominator of all those shootings, the gunman, the perpetrator, had automatic or semi-automatic weapon. This is not news to anyone in America, living in America. One thing that's becoming pretty obvious, it has been for quite a few years now, the pace of mass shooting has quickened. When that first started in the 90s, you could have one mass shooting every 6 months. per the latest information, it's every 2.5 months that you have a mass shooting in America. And every mass shooting, we always have pile of bodies wounded, left behind by the mass shooter. All of those shootings were made possible because of automatic weapon. All of those shootings were made possible. That much damage inflicted on those communities were made possible by the use of automatic or semi-automatic weapon, the what of mass shooting. If you were to have a lingering problem in your own household, whatever that is, we'll take the most common example that most people would be familiar with: termite. Termite, very annoying. If you own a property, you know the kind of damage termite can do to that property. You spot one termite, you spot two, you spot 10, you spot 100, you spot an army. In fact, I can almost guarantee that the first termite that you would have spotted, by sheer accident maybe, whatever the case is, but the first termite you would have spotted, you would have been on the phone calling the exterminator to take care of that problem, would you not? I can almost bet that there is no homeowner that would see a problem such as termite and would simply leave it alone and continue to do absolutely nothing about it. There is no way in the world I can imagine that scenario where you are a homeowner, you spot termite, and you decide, oh well, would you? Well, I'm gonna go with you would not. I take my chances. But we're talking about not a human being, we're talking about a property, a house. Something, yes, it costs money, yes. If you lose it, you may have to replace it. But it is not as important as a human life, what do you say? I would. But if you see termite eating away at your property, you would not rest until the problem is fixed. And if you were to call a exterminator rather, come and do the job of taking care of that problem. Terminator is done, and then you continue to spot termite, you would be extremely unhappy about the service that you got. Would you not? Of course you would. And the reason is because you value your property. And on top of that, it is an annoying scenario to live with, meaning having termite eating away at your property. So you would not rest until the problem is completely taken care of. I cannot imagine, even in a nightmare, that you would spend 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years with that problem and do nothing about it. I cannot imagine that scenario at all. Can you? I cannot see anyone in his or her right mind spending a day without having someone taking care of that problem. And the reason is, of course, because, well, it is costly not to do anything. Don't you think? As such, it is impossible to even imagine, in the worst case scenario, you would spend a week, which would be a long time, the day that you spot termite. Even if it were to be holiday, even if it were to be long weekend, you would make certain that someone, an exterminator, dispatched, no matter what it costs, to come to your property and take care of that problem. I guarantee you, you would not rest until that's taken care of. Why? Common sense, right? Because you have a property, now you have a problem that's eating away at that property, then you cannot possibly not do anything about it. Now you start seeing why those people don't like hearing from us, because we try to bring common sense into the process. Because what I just mentioned to you, it is very difficult for me to hear any argument that you would do nothing about it. Because you know that if you have such a problem, termite eating away at your property, you would not rest until the problem is taken care of. As I just mentioned, I cannot see you, the owner of a property, spending a week, a month, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years with termite problem. If you were to let a day go by, that's a very long time for you. You would not even be able to sleep properly, because that problem would continue to haunt you until you have that exterminator coming and take care of the problem. Although you know nothing about exterminating, I guarantee you probably would supervise the whole thing to make sure that termite problem is gone for good. And what I just mentioned to you, you take any of those people in Washington, and I single out Mitch McConnell in particular, owner of property, who would not do anything about his property, but is doing everything possible to prevent any legislation from being passed to ban automatic and semi-automatic weapon. You know, the termite that's been destroying our lives, that be destroying communities. He would take care of his property. He would make sure that the exterminator comes and take care of the termite problem in his property. But for some reason, he found it okay that we have termite mass shooting that destroying communities. And to Mitch McConnell, that's not his problem. Who cares? That's not his property. That's not his kids being killed. So they can continue to kill. Can you imagine any debate in your household about why or why not to call the exterminator if you have termite problem? Can you imagine that debate taking place? Of course not. Because it is a problem that needs to be addressed. But when it comes to our society, communities being destroyed by mass shooters, Mitch McConnell has and company have a lot of excuses for not doing anything. It was to defend your Second Amendment right. We know that's not true because we watch Republicans destroying the very Constitution that they're trying to say it is to protect your Second Amendment right, because they don't care about Second Amendment, and I'm going to show you why in just a moment. So we have Mitch McConnell and company who would deploy all resources in order to have exterminators taking care of termite problem at his property. He would not sleep, he would not rest, he would make certain that happened pretty quickly. But when it comes to mass shooting in the country, it doesn't matter to him. He has excuses, he has debate, he has discussion. You have to consider this, you have to consider that, because it doesn't impact him. In the meantime, generations of people are being slaughtered in America. The mass shooting in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio happened more than coming to a week now. And Mitch McConnell has been trying his best to prevent any voting from taking place, because the idea of banning semi-automatic and automatic weapons is not to his advantage, and I'm going to show you why. But I do have one question for you. I'm not talking about people who think it's okay not to have it banned. I'm talking about conscientious American, patriot, people who are concerned about this generation, people who are concerned about future generation, people who care about other people. I'm not talking about selfish individual. I'm not talking about people like Mitch McConnell who have to bring excuses in order not to do what is appropriate to be done. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about individuals who understand what it means to protect the nation. Why would you continue to support individuals like that as your representative? That's my biggest question for you. That's my only question for you. Why would you continue to support individuals who have proven time and again that as far as your safety, they don't give a damn? Why do you continue to support those individuals? Las Vegas mass shooting claimed the lives of 58 people and more than 800 people injured. That was massacre. The other one resembling that was the one in Florida, Orlando, Florida, Pulse nightclub. 49 people and 50 people were injured. People were stuffed in a freezer for what seemed to be an eternity while the gunmen were just gunning people down. Automatic, semi-automatic weapon. And you're having people you elect debating why they should or should not. You may not be a victim today, but rest assured it's coming near you. You may think you're safe. You may think it will never happen to you, right? Rest assured, if you continue to support those individuals, those selfish individuals in Washington who only see themselves, rest assured, sooner or later, you will pay the price. Because those information that I just read to you, if you are paying attention, there is not a particular state it happened. There is not a particular community it happened. It's happening across the country. El Paso, Texas, as the resident of El Paso, Texas, been saying this is something they would not expect to happen in that community. And yet, it did. An individual drove 10 hours to go there. So if you continue to support those individuals, those crooks in Washington, exclusively Republicans, they all been preventing anything from being done about automatic and semi-automatic weapon. Yes, you don't have to look at Democrat in this, and you don't have to be pointing fingers at Democrat, because this problem is exclusively caused by Republican legislators. They're the one who've been opposing again and again and again and again. Every time legislation is proposed, they crush it down. 1999, the first major mass shooting in modern history, in modern time in America. Since then, Republicans have been gearing up, preventing any measure from being passed to ban the use of automatic and semi-automatic weapon by civilians. Yes, your children, you or someone you love will suffer those consequences if you continue and you think it's okay to continue to support those crooks, those selfish individuals in Washington. Mitch McConnell in particular have been preventing anything from being done to ban automatic and semi-automatic weapons. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have someone crazy pulling a gun. You're going to have that. But automatic weapon that can kill people en masse is currently, today, completely in the hands of the Republicans. All those shootings that I just read to you occurred with the use of automatic or semi-automatic weapon. You need that massacre to be in your front door first before you do something, before you take on those politicians who don't care about you. That's what you're waiting for? Well, if that's what you're waiting for, don't worry, it will come to you. Because your Republican legislators, they already made up their mind. They in this business to protect corporation, in this case gun manufacturer, and any other place related to it. NRA comes to mind. That's the business they're in. Not in the business of protecting you. not in the business of doing something to prevent the next mass shooting from happening. No, they don't care about you. They need your vote, and which you continue to give to them. But as far as they're concerned, you being killed, that's not any of their concern. And I'm going to show you why in just a moment. Take a look at this. This is a chart. Again, as I mentioned, all the data that are being provided to you discussing this topic, you can verify those information. This was pulled directly from the ATF site. ATF is an agency of our government which deal exclusively in firearms. It's the alcohol, tobacco, and firearm agency. 1986, manufactured in the United States of America, there were just over 3 million firearms manufactured. That was 1986. Take a look at the last one, the tallest bar, 2016. 11,500,000 million firearms manufactured. I don't know if you're paying attention. From 3 million to almost 12 million, that's 9 million more manufactured in the United States. Why do you think so? What exactly is going on? Why is manufacturing weapon increase? Any idea? Well, because there are more demand for firearms. More people are buying, more firearms are being sold. It is a lucrative industry. Now, you would think that's enough, right? Take a look at this one. Despite the fact I just showed to you that the United States of America gun manufacturer manufactured 9 million more firearms between 1986 to 2016, right? You'd think, oh well, then that should be enough, right? Of course not. What you're looking at on your screen now is imports. Oh yes, despite the fact that they manufacture, they continue to manufacture more and more weapons, but they also importing too. In 1986, same year, import was just over 700,000. Just over 700,000. 2017, 4.5 million. So if you were to really add those figures, 12 million plus 5 million, 17 million weapons being circulated right here in the United States of America as of 2016, which means we're in 2019. You can rest assured more of that. Now, you don't have to be a genius to figure out why. You do not have to be a genius to figure out why there is an increase in the production of weapons. If you're in business, you're selling an item, if there is no demand, you cannot continue to buy more and more of that item because you know you're not going to sell it. The only reason you will continue to have more supplies is because there is more demand for that product. The gun manufacturers, they're not in the business of just manufacture gun for the sake of. The more they have demand, the more they manufacture. That's why in 1986 we were talking about just 3 million. In 2016 we're talking about 12 million. Business good. And if you manufacture more of a product, you have to have a way of selling more of that product, right? Because otherwise it would not be a profitable business, would it? So you need venues, you need ways to get those products out there so that you can make money. So what do? NRA comes and say, I can help. I have a lot of people I know who have guns, who buy guns, overwhelmingly Republicans. NRA is kind of the bridge by saying, I can convince those people to loosen the legislation, because if you need to sell gun, we cannot have strict legislation. Because if there are strict legislation, then gun production have to go down, then less profit. So NRA comes and say, leave that to me, I'll take care of that. So NRA comprised almost exclusively of Republicans. Lobby, and that's easy for them to do. That's very easy because most of their members, take people in Washington, most Republicans are members of NRA. There are Democrats too, don't get me wrong, there are Democrats as well. But ironically, even the Democrats that are members of NRA have been fully supporting banning automatic and semi-automatic weapons. So we cannot be looking at Democrats and say, well, they're a member of the NRA too, Yes, we know that. This is information we have readily available. But one thing that's different, they're all on board for legislation that ban automatic and semi-automatic weapons. They're all on board. So NRA has been doing the background job for gun manufacturers, first helping increase the sales. But most importantly, that's a major part of the job that they do, is making certain, like people like Mitch McConnell, do prevent any legislation posing restriction on the sales of guns from ever being passed. You see the problem? But you have to ask yourself the question. Nobody can come to me and say, I want you to stop doing this or I want you to do that. There got to be a reason for me to go along with it, don't you think? Because the gun manufacturer paying NRA and other lobbying groups to, lobby people like Mitch McConnell. But the question is, what's in it for him? Because Mitch McConnell you cannot possibly imagine that Mitch McConnell would do that really because of the goodness of his heart, because he loves NRA so much, he loves the gun manufacturer so much, right? You cannot possibly imagine that's the case. All you cannot possibly imagine is because Mitch McConnell is so much for the Second Amendment right. That's why he's so much preventing any ban of semi-automatic weapon. According to ATF, in 2017, there were approximately 25 million background checks. 25. Now that sounds like a lot, right? It's not. And the reason is because there are a lot of sales, auction, private sale. There is no background check done in those venues. The 25 million background check happened because the individual in question walked into a store that has license to sell, and those stores are required by law to do a background check, although it is soft background check, and they have to report it because they don't want to lose their license. If they fail to do that, then of course they would lose their license. But those same stores do have a back channel that they use to sell weapons, like at auction, because it's not happening at the store, it's happening at auction. So at those venues there is no background check. You can even go on eBay and find out there are a lot of auction sales of weapons being done. A lot of weapons are sold that ATF has no idea. So those figures I'm giving you, ATF figures, but guess what? Those figures are really very low in comparison to people getting put their hands on weapons. Which means the situation is even more scarier. But if we stick for a moment with ATF data, in 2017 there were over 25 million background checks, and according to ATF, out of actually they give a larger number from 1998 to 2018, there were approximately 230 million background checks. 1.3 million were denied a license. In 2015, there were sales of weapons that reached $9 billion. $9 billion with a B. In 2018, the numbers jumped to $11 billion. As you can see, it's only going in the increase, no matter where you're looking at, which makes sense, because if the manufacturers are manufacturing more product, that means they're getting more demand, they're selling more. That's pretty basic in business. So 2018, manufacturers sales of firearms jumped to $11 billion. So those individuals, they make a lot of money, they make a lot of profit. Sales of guns, of firearms, pretty profitable business. So they use, a small portion of their profits, which doesn't hurt them in any way, shape, or form, funnel it to NRA to make certain that people like Mitch McConnell is promised campaign finance money in exchange for doing nothing about mass shooting. As you can see, it's not as simple as Mitch McConnell pretending that he's concerned about your Second Amendment right. It's not because Mitch McConnell is so concerned about different aspects, like that's why they keep coming with different ways of saying that there is no need really for those legislation because we want your Second Amendment right to be protected. And then it becomes, well, it's mentally ill people, as if all those shootings were happening with mentally ill people. A lot of those people legally acquired those weapons. A lot of those people. So the excuse about mentally ill individual out of the window. Now the latest video game is what's causing the problem. As you can see, your Republican legislature run out of excuses, and yet they decide to do absolutely nothing. And the reason is because of what I just explained to you. Sales of firearms, great profit, skyrocketing. It's bringing money. Killing people is profitable. Killing communities is profitable. So NRA take the ball running and making certain that Republicans, legislators, understand that in order for them to get money from NRA, in order for the campaign, election and re-election bid, they better not do anything about mass shooting. So it's not just because Mitch McConnell decide there is a good reason for it. Of course, they'll tell you, politicians, they come up with all kind of lies to tell you, the constituent, but the main reason behind it is because they want that money that promises them. They want to receive that money for their campaign financing. As such, community being massacred in mass shooting is not their problem. But time and again, you fall for it because every election, what do? You vote them in office. Let me say it as clearly as I can. It may sound callous, but when the mass shooting happened in your community, it probably might not be a bad idea for you to be among those victims because you help perpetuate the problem. Because you keep sending those same individuals that keep doing nothing about banning automatic and semi-automatic weapons, then you might as well suffer the consequences of your choice. Unfortunately, other people would like to see those type of legislation passed. They too among the victim. But sometimes I would hope that the individual that helped this problem linger in the country could be the only victim of those mass shootings. And they would deserve it. Because it's impossible to imagine that if you have a problem in your home, you would take care of that problem pretty quickly, and yet people are being murdered, slaughtered in America almost every other month, and you find, all right, we don't have any problem with a mass shooting. We don't have any problem with people having automatic and semi-automatic weapons. Maybe you should be among the victims. Maybe Mitch McConnell should be among the victims. All the Republicans that are today doing the bidding of NRA should be among the victims. Maybe they should, because it is impossible for me to imagine that an individual elected to protect the constituent doing everything possible not to do that, because it's more profitable for those individuals to receive money from the gun manufacturer at the cost of the lives of their constituent. That doesn't compute in my book. The very reason those individuals are elected is to do the job of the constituent, to protect. And if that very basic job they're not able to do, they should not be in that position. They should not be, because they took an oath to do that. And yet every time it comes time for them to do what's necessary, they're dancing around the topic and they're giving all kind of excuses, lying to their constituent about the whole thing. But they're not the only one responsible, because the constituent also have been making it possible for those people to continue in those jobs. You would not keep an individual you hire to do a job and cannot do the job, and for you to continue to pay that individual. Why would you keep someone that you elected to do a job, not doing the job, and continue to vote that person in office? That's a question you should ask yourself. Why would you? And yes, that's the reason a lot of those individuals, they don't like hearing those type of common sense conversation, because you only like to hear things that massage your ego, or that make you feel good that I'm saying the same thing you believe in. No, this is not right. Those people were not elected by gun manufacturers. Yes, they received money from gun manufacturers, but they were elected by constituents, which means they owe protection to those constituents. And yet they continue to lie to those constituents because they want to protect the corporation, the gun manufacturers, because that's where they're going to receive money, so that they can use to smear the other individual so that they can keep their job. So in other words, not only those scoundrels in Washington are bad for the country, but the constituents that continue to vote them in office are also responsible for that problem, because they tolerating those selfish legislators, exclusively Republican legislators. No, you cannot point fingers at Democrat when it comes to that issue. Republican and Republican alone have been preventing any common sense legislation from being passed, banning automatic and semi-automatic weapons. You don't need a degree. You don't need to have been in college to understand that simple concept. Automatic and semi-automatic weapon should not be in the hands of civilians. That's as simple as that. There is no argument there. And it's not taking away your Second Amendment rights either. That doesn't prevent you from owning a gun, but it prevents an individual, a civilian, from owning an automatic or semi-automatic weapon. What's wrong with that picture? Oh, I forgot. There was a time the argument about gun not passing legislation is for self-defense. Now that argument died pretty quickly, because the figures about anyone with a gun having the opportunity to defend himself or herself is so low, it's negligible. In other words, the idea that owning a gun is what's going to save you from an attacker, that is thrown out of the window, because it almost never happened. People who have gone commit suicide, people who have gone shoot others in homicide, and people who have gone commit mass murder. Those are not data that are privy just to me. As I mentioned to you, you head to the ATF website. That's a government agency, and those data are readily available for anyone who wants to use and check it out. Yes, Republicans are responsible for mass shooting in America. For 2 decades, our streets, our schools have been grounds, almost war areas, where an individual can walk and open fire. In Dayton, Ohio, in a matter of less than 30 seconds, a gunman gunned down 8 people and injured 19 in less than 30 seconds. Had a police officer not show up on time, you can imagine the damage that would have been done in that area. What does a civilian need a machine gun for? The pace of mass shooting in America has increased. From a mass shooting happening every 6 months to now happening every other month. Not only the pace has increased, but the number of casualties also are in the increase as well. From being able to just kill a few people now to a mass of people, mass shooting has become almost a day-to-day matter in America. The problem is well known. It is well documented. We have all the data about mass shooting in America. We know who commit the mass shooting. We know sometimes why they commit the mass shooting. And we know what they use to commit the mass shooting. And in all the cases that we look at today, automatic and semi-automatic weapon. We're not in a country where there are wars, civil wars, or any kind of war that would warrant for a civilian to own a machine gun. And yet, all those mass shootings committed by different people, all of them were committed using an automatic or semi-automatic weapon. The solution is not difficult at all. Not having any reason to own a machine gun, there is no reason to provide an opportunity for a civilian to own a machine gun. The manufacturer, the gun manufacturer, they don't care much because they're in the business of selling guns. And if there is a demand for a product, they make sure that the product is available. Our beef is not with the gun manufacturer because they're in the business of manufacturing guns, firearms. Our problem is with the elected official, but most exclusively Republican legislators in Washington, who, after 2 decades of communities being torn apart, being destroyed by mass shooters, have decided to do absolutely nothing, or rather yet, to protect the gun manufacturer instead of the civilian. Time and again, Republican legislators come up with some sort of argument against banning automatic and semi-automatic weapons. Just recently, right after the El Paso, Texas mass shooting and Dayton, Ohio, less than a week old, Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, has been trying everything possible to prevent that from happening again, thus clearing the path for yet another mass shooting. Yes, we can blame the politician because they're not doing the job for which they were elected. But the Republican constituents should also take a look in the mirror and realize that they too are accomplices to those mass shootings, because they are the one supporting and voting those crooks, those scoundrels back in office over and over and over again. In other words, we can lay at the door of the Republican Party in general the blood of all those people who have been losing their lives. Because as far as Republicans are concerned, that is not their business that people are being killed. I just hope and pray that the next mass shooting, some of those individuals can have a taste of their own medicine. They too can become victims of mass shooting. Maybe, just maybe, some of them, those who survive, may start understanding that it is not possible to continue supporting people who are not doing the job of protecting the country. I do hope you are safe this weekend. And if you are one of those individuals who are hoping that your legislators does the right thing, so am I. And let's make certain, you Republican constituent, that your Republican legislators who have been preventing a common sense banning of automatic and semi-automatic weapons from being passed, to have their mind change. Because if not, the next mass shooting is only a couple of months away. Good day. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again next week. I am MD, host of the Fourth Branch program, The Place for Common Sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful weekend. See you soon.